All right, so now we're at the end of the first part of the course, and we're going to cover denial of service attacks, phishing attacks, and some final thoughts I want to leave you before we finish the client side part of web security. In the second part of the course, what we're going to cover is the server side. But for now, we've seen most of the attacks and most of the things that we need to be aware of when it comes to client side web security. And then in the second part, we'll cover everything that we need to be aware of on the server side. So let's get into denial of service and phishing. I'm going to show you some examples. I think this will be a fun class. It'll be, I'll try to keep it short because I think we've already covered some of the most important things. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to bring your attention to is tab nabbing. So I don't know if you ever heard of tab nabbing, but tab nabbing pretty much is, let's say you're on a forum or a message board or whatever, and an attacker posts a link. Now the link has this this property that says target blank, and I think we saw this before, but if you don't remember, target blank is what allows you to open up a new tab, right? So an attacker post this link, the link looks completely normal. That's not actually where the attack takes place, but it has this property that says target blank, and then the user, once they open it, they kind of go to this other page. So let me just show you what the example is first, and then I'm going to explain to you how it is that it happens. So let's open up that link. Okay, and let me close this. All right, so let's open up that link. And let me put this full screen. And then I just want you to watch what's happening on the screen over here. All right, so they're going to make a link. And then they're just going to post. So the link looks completely normal. Now, here's the thing. So as you can see, they're on Reddit right now. Okay. So now someone else is going to come and click that link completely normal. Now, the thing is that Reddit doesn't want people to leave their site. So what Reddit will do for them is Reddit would actually open up a new tab for them, right? But now behind the scenes, okay, I don't know, let me just rewind this so you're aware of what's going on. So behind the scenes, if you look over here, this site is changing, okay? And now let's pause it for a second. You see that instead of saying Reddit, there's like an added D to it. So they've actually, what they've done is, while the users on the other tab, they had a reference to that other window, right? The Reddit window, right? So if you remember what we talked about, once we open up a new link to a new tab, now we have a reference. This is like an iframe, okay? So anytime we have a reference to another window, we can control that window. And what they've done is they changed the URL in that window to somewhere else. And now what they're doing is the user is trying to sign into Reddit, but of course this is not Reddit, right? So it says incorrect password. Now over here we see that what's been going on is when they enter that information went to the attacker server, right? And now the attacker has that user's username and password. And again, this is very tricky, right? This is actually very hard. I would say if, this is an attack that, and I'm aware of these type of attacks, and this is something that would be very hard to catch even for someone like me, right? So this is what tab nabbing is. I just want to make you aware of it. It's a very difficult attack to catch, but again, it's out there, and I just wanted to show it to you so that you're aware and that we cover all our bases. Okay, so let me move up here. All right, so again, this is kind of how the attack would take place. So if you just want to have the code as reference, we're pretty much opening up a new window, and then we're checking if the parent location, if we're still on the same, if we're not on the parent tab, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna change it, and if we are on it, then we're not gonna change it because we know that the victim now has been on our that the victim now is on our own URL that we wanted them to be on anyways. So that's tab nabbing, okay? So that's a pretty crazy one, and it's pretty hard. So there you go. So what's the defense for this? So whenever especially as we're developing, one of the things that you can do is you can add a new property to your link tags and called rel. So the rel, just set the rel to no opener. And what this will do is this will allow all the links with the target blank to prevent to have that attack. Okay, so it won't allow anything. So it won't allow it essentially for that user to get a reference to that window. Okay, so it won't be binded to the window, right? So the open window sites will be null. So there won't be any anything that the attacker can use in order to get access to that other tab. Okay, and there's also rumors of a new HTTP header that browsers want to include or introduce, and it's called cross-origin opener policy. so again, I think, you know, we don't know when this is going to come online or if it is at all. But anyways, it's something that browsers have been talking about, including in the spec. You know, if it comes, great. If not, you know, it's a hard attack. And yeah, I just want to make you aware of it. Another thing I wanted to make you aware of it. Oh, actually, I think I skipped over this. So one of the things that I also want to talk about, which is where we left off in the last lecture, is as we've seen throughout this course, as we want more and more powerful browsers, okay, then what happens is that inevitably we have to allow the browser to have different levels to the API, right? So the browser is going to have access to a camera, for example, which at the beginning it wasn't that way, right? The browser can have access to your file system. The browser can have access to all these things in the API. And I wanted to show you kind of the levels of API, and the levels, the way they're divided up here is kind of dependent on whether like an attacker can just actually execute the attack without any intervention, to all the way to level 3 where a prompt comes up on the browser. So for example, if you're trying to use a user's camera, a prompt will show up and say, hey, do you want to let the site have access to your camera, right? So that's level 3. Level 0 are all the attacks that can be implemented, or all the APIs that, okay, so let's not call them attacks, because these APIs, although they can be abused, that's not what they're meant for. So, but, you know, browsers have come to the realization that they do get abused. So depending on that, you know, they'll execute some type of prompt, or it'll take some type of user behavior in order for that part of the API to be to become active, right? So all level 0 APIs are APIs that kind of have no restrictions, right? The API can be used immediately without any behavior kind of on the user side, right? So these are DOM, CSS, window.move, file download. So yeah, I mean, that's a pretty crazy one, but pretty much anyone can download a file without you actually clicking on the download link. And there are good use cases for this, but anyways, that it's part of a level 0 API access. And the move mouse cursor, this is also level 0, and it makes sense because this can be implemented just simply on CSS with the CSS property. But in any case, if someone hides like the cursor mouse, and then other attacks can be implemented because through JavaScript they can make a new cursor that looks like the old cursor, but it's not. It's being actually controlled by JavaScript, right? And then that's a way that an attack can be implemented. The level 1 APIs, the user interaction is required, so the API cannot be used except in response to a user's activation. So example, like a click or a key press. So when you click on something, you know, someone can allow for a prompt to happen, or something, you know, once a user clicks on a link, or on a button or something on a page, for example, then maybe we can load a video, or maybe, for example, we can give them access to the camera or anything like that, right? And some examples of these are request full screen, navigator.vibrate, copy text to clipboard, speech synthesizer, window.open. So all these kind of, again, it's still pretty low level, so it's not like it takes an incredible amount of user interaction, right? It's not like a prompt is going to show up in order for these APIs to become active, but it still like at least requires that the user moves the mouse or does something, right? Like they need to actually interact with the page themselves before the attack can even happen, or before this API can be engaged. Level 2 API levels, level 2 access, it's required that the user does engage in a more meaningful way. So the API cannot be used until the user demonstrates high engagement. Okay, and again, yeah, this is a moving target, but yeah, they need to demonstrate some type of engagement with the website. So, for example, autoplay sound, right? So now by default, websites won't autoplay sound. So the user actually has to click on, you know, that they want the sound to be active, right? So that's although it's not a prompt, it's definitely a the user is explicitly saying, hey, I want this to happen, right? And at that point, then the API becomes available. Prompt to install a website to the home screen. Again, this is something that the user actually has to go out of their way, right, and say, yeah, I want this to happen, right? And these are level 2 API access. And then level 3, which the user permission is definitely required. This is not just engagement, but the user has to, for example, click on a button and then a prompt will show up, and then they still have to say, yes, I want this to happen, right? So it's that kind of level interaction. And the APIs that fall under this category are camera, microphone, geolocation, USB, MIDI device access. So, you know, pretty much anything that has like pretty low level access to computer resources or things like that. That's kind of the level 3 API access. So again, as we've been talking through some of the attacks, I also wanted to, because I know we left off in the last course talking about APIs and all the API that are available through the browser, and we've been talking about that since the beginning of the class. So I kind of wanted to categorize them for you and show you kind of where they fall within this level of categorization. Okay, so now you have an idea, and again, I suggest go ahead and read up on some of these documentation. I'm gonna put some links up as well, so you can actually get a more in-depth, some more information on all of this. The next thing I want to show you, it's this great paper. It's called "Most Websites Don't Need to Vibrate," and again, I thought it was a pretty interesting paper. It was brought to my attention by a good friend of mine, but it's a cost-benefit approach to improving browser security. So again, it's a paper that was brought in, and they're kind of analyzing whether, you know, are all these things pretty necessary, right? Like, do we need to have all these? Do we need to like allow the browser to have all these API level access in order to deliver a good experience on the web? And if the answer is yes, then, you know, like how should we move forward with this, right? And I think this is an ongoing conversation, but it's something, especially if you're getting into security. I put a link up here for you to check out this paper. But if you're getting into security and especially web security, read this paper. It's a pretty interesting read. It's a good read, and I think you get a lot out of it. And then one last thing I wanted to show you, which is a phishing example. So let's see here. So and again, I after this, I want to show you. I want to leave you with some final thoughts before we part. So this phishing example, again, this is like one of those things that's pretty hard to catch. So let me just play this video and see if you guys can figure out what's going on here. All right. So a person comes to a page, okay, and now they're scrolling up and down. But you see, as soon as they scroll down, this URL, I don't know if you caught that, right? So they're first on this regular URL, and then it changes to a bank URL because they scroll down. So what the attacker's doing is they've kind of iframed their website within the user's profile, and as they start scrolling, what then the attacker is going to do behind the scenes is going to change the frame URL, but at the same time is going to keep on top of that frame the same website that was there before. So from the user's perspective, visually, right, it looks like they have nothing's happened, right? But if we look at the URL up here, then we can certainly see that now the user has been navigated to their banking URL. And of course, at this point, anything is fair game, you know, and we've already looked into some of the attacks that can happen over here. But again, cookie hijacking, session hijacking, cross-site scripting, can become a vulnerability at this point. And, you know, the attacker pretty much has full control, and at this point they can do almost anything. Okay, so again, I'm gonna leave a link up for this. This is a great article. I think you should check it out. But yeah, that's a phishing example, and it leads us to one last quote I want to leave you with for this part of the course, and it goes like this: like, as we've been talking about, right? Security solutions. And this is a quote by Bruce Shiner. Security solutions have a technological component. They do, and as we've seen, that's kind of what we've been covering throughout all this. What the attacks look like, how they're implemented, what are the defenses we can execute against them to cover ourselves and our users. But essentially, security is fundamentally a people problem, right? And that's, specifically, especially phishing really showcases this. That at the end of the day, anything can happen if an attacker can get access to not just a computer, right, but a user themselves, right? So it's people error that can sometimes cause the biggest vulnerabilities, and not so much the securities or the APIs that the browser might have or anything like that, right? So if a person makes a mistake, which usually it's what happens, that's where a lot of vulnerabilities are going to come in. And as you go further in your career as a pen tester and or as a developer, it's important to keep that in mind, right? Users are not predictable, okay? And no matter how much we want to make the web a safe place, the mere fact that at the end of the day, it's going to be users using the web and people using the web, then vulnerabilities are always going to be a presence. Okay, and it's my it's my belief that we shouldn't. It's not that we shouldn't work towards making a safer web. We should, but we should be very careful about how we think about this, right? Because at the end of the day, if we put ourselves in a position where the web becomes this place where nothing can be trusted, and we lose this ability to communicate and to communicate freely and to share resources. And I think the web is only getting better as time goes on. Although you can see that it does bring with it its own caveats. I think the benefits far outweigh any repercussions or any of the problems that we're seeing on the web. And again, that's just my belief. Anybody can have their own opinion. I just want to show you, and I just want to show you from my perspective what I think. And one more thing, thank you so much for watching the course up to this point. I hope you've gotten a good education. I hope you're I don't know where you were at the beginning, but I hope by now you at least have a good grasp of some of the attacks that are the most prevalent that you should defend against. And now that you have some of those skills, I think the second part of the course, you're also going to love it, which we're going to cover now all the server side part of web security. Okay, so thank you so much for watching up to this point. Please, leave me some feedback. If you have any, I'll try to come back, update the course as I get some feedback. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next course. Take care.